Hello, hi, my name is Zoe, and today we're going to talk about Saturn and what your Saturn means in your birth chart. So for those of you who are new to astrology, make sure that you get your natal chart. You can get it for free. I have posted a link below in the description box, so you can click on that. Go get your natal chart done. Look at where your Saturn is located, what sign and what house, and then come back here and we will learn all about what it means. This right here is the symbol for Saturn. So for example, my Saturn is in Aquarius. It's on the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces, and it's in the third house. Your Saturn is a very important planet in your natal chart. It does not mess around. Wherever your Saturn is in your natal chart, it will tell you about how you establish boundaries, about how much self-respect you have, about where you feel limited or restricted, about how disciplined you are, how hard you work, how much faith you have in yourself, and also where you must be alone. In this video today, we're gonna look at what sign your Saturn is located in and what that means. I will also tackle Saturn throughout the houses in a different video. I'm also going to talk about Saturn returns and what your Saturn return would look like based on what sign it's in. Make sure you check out my video on Saturn returns if you want to learn more about that. Also, I have listed the timestamps for each of the signs, so if you know what sign your Saturn is in, please feel free to jump to that so you can get straight into your Saturn. So my Saturn is located in Aquarius, and it's on the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces in the third house. For those of you who have Saturn in Aquarius or Pisces, please feel free to also check out that video on Saturn returns because I cover information on that throughout that video. If your Saturn is indeed in Aquarius, then you should be experiencing your Saturn return right now, just like me. Remember, Saturn takes about 29 years to rotate and return to its natal position in your chart. Right now it's in Aquarius. All right, let's get into it. Aries Saturn. Saturn fucking hates Aries because Saturn loves routine and structure. And Aries is like, fuck stability and discipline. Fuck it. I'm going to challenge Saturn every step of the way and do my own thing. They don't want to feel stuck. They just want to be themselves. They rule the first house, which is the house of self. And they're a cardinal sign. They lead the way. They learn from their mistakes and their impulses. Saturn is not impulsive. It's not a child. It doesn't do whatever the fuck it wants. It's a grumpy old man. It has standards and rules. And basically, Saturn just confuses Aries. Don't get me wrong, Saturn in Aries makes you powerful. A lot of the time, but it can be difficult for you to keep up a lot of the time too. Aries likes a good challenge. In fact, they may thrive on it. They can make it to the top and make all their dreams come true, but it will still be an uphill battle. Aries Saturn may want to control situations and make you very ambitious. Aries rules the head and the mouth, so they may have to deal with toothaches or dental issues and also headaches more often. Saturn is the grumpy old man planet. That's what I like to call it anyway. And Aries is the child, which means that as Aries grows, it will get easier and easier, and they'll be able to achieve a lot more. They tend to struggle a lot in their youth and then get better over time because they learn from their mistakes. They can be too controlling sometimes, and they can turn into that bitter, grumpy old man when they're out of balance. They can be headstrong. So during their Saturn return, when Saturn, returns to its position in their natal chart, and this happens every 29 years, give or take, they basically have to learn that they don't have to do it all by themselves. They need to work as a team instead of trying to compete with others. It's not a contest. Aries wants to dive into something, and Saturn is like, slow down, think this through. So it can create a lot of inner turmoil. During a Saturn return, it can feel like you're kind of fighting with yourself. It's like there's a battle in your head. During a Saturn return, you need to figure out the relationship with yourself, Aries. and what it means to be independent. Aries can be selfish sometimes. During their Saturn return, they will have to learn how to put others first and kind of figure out what their role is to others. Aries is in it to win it, and they'll be forced to figure out how to collaborate with others. But it's also about looking at what the people in your life offer you. Are they hindering your growth? Do they really care about you? Can you be yourself around them? Do you complement each other? You might have to take a step back and learn to share the spotlight. Taurus Saturn. With a Saturn in Taurus, they're always waiting for their moment. They want to be successful materialistically. They have to experience that success in real time. They want to feel financially secure. And Saturn Taurus might have to be in it to truly believe it. Taurus is a fixed sign, and so with Saturn, that allows them to be responsible and take things seriously. They don't give up and they're determined. Competence isn't usually an issue for them. When unbalanced, a Taurus Saturn can be stubborn and narrow-minded, and they often deal with sexual insecurities. A Taurus Saturn might like to own things more than rent them, and sometimes they can surround themselves with stuff to not feel alone. Now, Saturn brings a more conservative and reserved quality to them. They might care a lot about financial security. And remember, wherever your Saturn is located, like in what house, will definitely influence what I mean by what makes them feel secure. Because Taurus isn't just about materialism. Like, that's a very strong stereotype that a lot of people think Tauruses are all about. But Saturn adds this kind of rigid mentality to it, which can make it want to feel more grounded in reality, like more grounded in the world around them. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically it adds this grounding energy that makes them want to be able to feel things and experience things for themselves. And the thing is, they can amass wealth slowly, but it doesn't mean that they won't get there in time. A Taurus Saturn is very convincing, and they can spend a lot of time trying to convince other people that they're right. They tend to save or have stocks or get into real estate, things like that. They're selective about where they spend their resources and who they keep in their circle. You don't want to spend time on somebody who drains you or depletes your energy. Even if some people think you're being selfish or too focused on tangible results. But when you do achieve your financial goals, which usually happens later on, you use your knowledge of what it's like to struggle or your experience with lack in order to be more kind and giving back to others. Taurus Saturns rule the throat or the neck. And so they might experience sore throats or thyroid issues, colds, neck pain, hunched shoulders more easily. During their Saturn return, security is a huge theme. How secure are you? What does it mean to feel secure? Do you spend a lot of money or do you save more? Are you doing the work? Are you budgeting? Are you indulging too much? What is most important to you? During a Saturn return in Taurus, they will learn to negotiate and barter for things instead, and realizing that not everything has a price. They will be challenged financially and learn the value of things. They will also be confronted with their idea of lack and limiting beliefs about money. They may have this scarcity mindset that is holding them back from manifesting their dreams. Their weaknesses and thought patterns will be revealed. They will start to enjoy the finer things in life and care less about the cheap things and the better deals. They don't care as much about that stuff anymore. And during a Saturn return, they usually experience some kind of glow up. They might seem more beautiful because of their Venus energy. Their taste can change drastically, and they might experience a major revelation or a major epiphany that rocks their world. Gemini Saturns. Gemini Saturns feel the need to make decisions, and they hate being wishy-washy. Being all over the place is not fun for their minds. Gemini's intellectual side shines through with Saturn. They're very intelligent, they like to be organized, they don't like messes, they see through schemes easily. The truth is very important to Gemini Saturns. They can come across as cold, sarcastic, skeptical. They appreciate irony. Saturn makes it so that they don't need to share everything all the time. They can say things in a harsh way and be very direct, but they're also excited to learn new things and gain new insight. They're wise. They can be grumpy, but their worst moments happen when they're children. They often have a difficult childhood. Kindness is overrated. They value education, but it's not easy for them to get a lot of the time. Traveling can be an obstacle for them as they grow. Now, when Gemini Saturns are in a bad mood, they can be pretty bitchy when they express themselves. Geminis rule the chest and the lungs, but also the wrists and the hands. And because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, also the nervous system. So Geminis can have a lot of issues when it comes to these areas with their chest, their lungs, their breathing, wrist injuries like carpal tunnel, hand issues, stress, anxiety, panic attacks. But they're usually very money savvy, and they actually tend to be very good musicians. During a Saturn return in Gemini, they will be forced to confront their shadow side and integrate themselves. Gemini is represented by twins, and integration is a major theme for them. It will be crucial for them to learn to communicate their emotions without coming across as harsh. They will have to work on sorting through their thoughts and feelings. They'll have to figure out their truth and face the path they're on. Is it rewarding them physically, emotionally, and spiritually? And they must learn to trust themselves during their Saturn return. They'll need to narrow down their choices and be less critical towards others. And they'll have to lower their expectations for those around them and for themselves. They have to find a way to expect the same level of themselves. They will learn self-discovery and exploration during this time. They'll also have to learn to accept the flaws of those around them and embrace imperfection. Play nice, Saturn Geminis, if you want others to treat you with kindness. Cancer Saturns. Cancer rubs Saturn the wrong way because it's so emotional and mushy. It's very difficult to contain or build on. It's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Cancer is not good with structure. Establishing boundaries isn't a challenge here, it's maintaining them. That's the difficult part. Cancer Saturns depend on others a lot. They tend to experience stomach aches or digestive problems. Cancer can get caught up in self-pity and beat themselves up. They can be overly emotional and not use logic when it comes to making decisions. They love pleasure and they might get very carried away with food or wine or alcohol. They can be hedonistic. Cancer Saturns are usually very good at being business people and professional, but they have to avoid family business. Cancer is very determined and they can make good decisions. They tend to compensate for their weak Saturn placement by marrying someone that's older. They don't give up easily. They often had to deal with a lot of responsibility in their youth, and they do their best to make money and establish themselves. They're go-getters. They often experience mommy issues. And Cancer rules the moon, which is also represented by the mother. And Saturn creates challenges when it comes to mother figures. Cancer Saturn can cause a lot of insecurity and lack of confidence. Now, during their Saturn return, they will experience a lot of change. If you don't know what your Saturn return means, then make sure you check out my video on Saturn returns and really learn to be more patient and more compassionate with others. They will have to establish strong boundaries. Like I said, it's not really about establishing them, it's about maintaining them, but they still will have to learn to reestablish boundaries, figure out like what boundaries are to them. They'll also have to learn that the only person that they're emotionally responsible for is themselves and not other people, no matter how much they love them. Cancer does not enjoy being out of its shell. It doesn't. And they have their own comfort zone that takes a lot for them to get out of. Cancer is the hermit crab, and it takes its home on its back, like it carries everything. And figuring out what home means for you will be a major stepping stone during this time. During a Saturn return, you'll have to examine your attachments to those around you and learn to love without any expectations from them or having any strings attached. Also, letting go of blockages when it comes to love and learning to let it flow freely. During a Saturn return, Cancer Saturn often experiences an emotional crisis that pushes them to look more deeply at what matters to them and what love means to them and what their love is worth. Leo Saturn. Saturn definitely puts a damper on Leo's dramatic side. The energies don't often mesh well. Leo rules the heart, and they often have to deal with high blood pressure or maybe heart issues. Leo Saturns have difficulty when it comes to connecting with the hearts of others, which can be challenging for romantics. Saturn Leos tend to have very successful careers, but just when everything's going fantastic and amazing, they tend to have some kind of challenge that threatens to shake their universe. Leo Saturns can get into this victim mindset, and they can feel like the world is working against them, especially when they aren't getting enough attention. However, Leo Saturns are badass and great at being a boss. They are determined to be themselves and do whatever the fuck they want, even when others are against it. They are proud and confident. PDA may not be a Leo Saturn's cup of tea. Okay, maybe in moderation. And you aren't great at dealing with too much praise. People might tell you, just say thank you. They can be divas and they can be pretty theatrical, but like I said, Saturn has this kind of weighing energy, heavy energy, and it really puts a damper on that kind of dramatic and theatrical side. So, well, yeah, of course they can have their moments, and they can have their attitudes, right? It's still not as extreme because of Saturn, because Saturn adds that kind of grounding energy. They own up to their mistakes and they take responsibility. They're good at coordinating. You will rarely see a Leo Saturn acting envious or jealous. They don't like to let it show because it makes them feel vulnerable. They're extremely creative, and when they have the urge to create something, they are unstoppable. As long as they can use those organization skills to keep things running smoothly. They hate being normal and they don't want to fit in. They want to be unique and original and live a very exciting existence. But Saturn really puts a damper on this Leo's sense of adventure and thrill-seeking qualities. Leo Saturn doesn't just let anyone in. They can be very picky about who they call friend. And they might seem super open and accepting, but it's usually a facade. During a Saturn return in Leo, there is a strong desire to create. Remember to check out my video on Saturn returns if you want to know what that's about. If you don't know what a Saturn return is, I cover all of it in that video, so make sure you check that out. They will need to feel recognized, but also live their truth. They will find the need to connect with their inner child and revisit their dreams and natural gifts. Doing the inner work will teach a Leo a lot about themselves and help them feel more fulfilled. Especially if they've been so obsessed with work, they need to play and have fun. They'll also learn to give themselves permission to play and to have fun. This would be a perfect time to sign up for a course or, take a class. They might like to enrich themselves with history or take a tour, see an exhibition, or even travel to another country. Leo Saturns will be forced to believe in themselves and put themselves first. They might feel called to changing their career or taking time off to explore creativity. They need to stop seeking validation from others and learn to shape the life of their dreams. It's so easy for a Leo to cross a line or end up making unethical choices. And they can be shameless during their Saturn return. They need to figure out what their purpose is and design a life to achieve that purpose, which means getting rid of any toxic relationships or distancing themselves from unhealthy situations. They also might feel this need to boost their standing in society. It doesn't matter how much they've already accomplished throughout their life, a Saturn return will cause them to question it. Things that they put so much effort into just may no longer make them happy. And they may experience creative blockages that cause them to doubt themselves. Toxic people will reveal themselves during this time. And also behaviors that they exhibit will come to light. For example, people pleasing, codependency, difficulty connecting with others. So basically, if you have your Saturn in Leo, you're going to have to confront a lot of different things about yourself and the way you connect with other people, and confront the way you relate to others. You'll be forced to make some really difficult decisions, but ultimately, it will be about learning to make decisions for yourself. Leo Saturns often make a lot of money through their art and their creativity, and a Saturn return can create obstacles that will cause you to doubt your worth. It can look like writer's block or feeling unmotivated to create. Virgo Saturns. A Virgo Saturn has very refined taste, and it only increases over the years. They're sophisticated, even in a subtle way. Saturn likes being in Virgo. They vibe well. Virgo is analytical and hardworking, and Saturn really likes routine, so they're like, let's be best friends. Virgo is ruled by Mercury and very connected to the mind. And so Saturn will make it more intellectual and more logical. Virgo Saturns tend to be critical thinkers. But Virgo also is a sign that rules the digestive system and the intestines. And so with Saturn in Virgo, they may experience more digestive issues or ulcers, tummy problems. Virgo Saturns tend to overlook the big picture and often find the little things way more significant. They can get very focused on details. But Virgos are hard workers and they're good at planning things out and great at strategizing. They would probably make a lot of money in real estate. Virgo Saturns experience a lot of anxiety and they do a lot of overthinking. They can obsess about things. And remember, whatever house it is in, you're going to find it will impact it a lot more because you'll know like what kind of things you're obsessing about or what areas of life this is playing out in. But yeah, Virgo Saturns can obsess about things, but they're not all talk. They like to practice what they preach. They can't manage it all, and that's a really tough pill for them to swallow. They can get very pessimistic and see the negative. They set the bar very high and can have really high standards because they can be perfectionists. They often face a lot of darkness early on in life. Virgo rules the 6th house, which is also the house of health, so they may struggle with health issues as children and deal with situations that will scar them for life. With the Saturn in Virgo, they have a hard time seeing the long-term future, no matter how experienced or how smart they are. They can try to take over when things aren't working in their favor. Virgo Saturn like their rituals and their routines. During a Saturn return, they have to figure out what service means to them. And remember to check out my video on Saturn returns if you want to know what Saturn returns mean, if you don't know. They must stop holding on to fear and their inner critic in order to break free of whatever is holding them back during a Saturn return. They need to stop living out of alignment with themselves and say, fuck the rules. This is my life and I'm gonna live it my way. What were you conditioned to believe, and are those still serving you? We're fed a lot of bullshit by society. During a Saturn return, they're asking to audit all the routines and habits that they've formed. Are these hindering your path? Virgo Saturns are extremely hard on themselves. They have a very loud inner voice, and they need to learn to tune it out when Saturn returns, because it will only get louder. Also, they need to look at how much they're serving others versus serving themselves. Virgos can be very self-sacrificing when they don't have a clear path and they get very caught up in the details. They need to tune out that voice that tells them that they can't, because they can. And also learn to let go and let go of the reins, loosen the reins. They will see that not everything is serious and they can embrace life and embrace fun and joy and pleasure and embrace chaos. It's time for healing. They'll need to challenge their perfectionist qualities and realize that nobody is perfect and that they shouldn't be so hard on themselves if they don't live up to their own expectations. They'll also learn to receive instead of constantly giving. Virgo Saturns often spend their first 30 years as a hot mess. They don't sort out their shit until after their Saturn return. So when their Saturn return hits, it tends to hit them really hard. And it's a very significant period of time for them. Libra Saturns. So Saturn happens to be exalted in Libra, which means that it feels very at home here. Those with Saturn in Libra tend to make a very decent impression on others, and they're also good judges of character. However, Libra rules the lower back, and so when you have a Saturn in Libra, it can create back issues, or they might deal with kidney problems. They're good with commitments. Libra is a partnership sign, and Saturn can actually boost that energy. They know how to be polite and also when to assert themselves. They know how to read a room. They also only tend to get busted for things that they weren't supposed to be doing. Like, they hardly ever face consequences for things that are questionable, or they're not usually wrongly accused. They always want to understand other people, and that can look like trying to see from the other person's perspective. They excel in marriages, and they make excellent spouses. However, Saturn still causes challenges in their love life. It's a restrictive planet, and they tend to learn a lot through their relationships. They're often successful artists and they do well in the spotlight, but they also have a tendency to get very absorbed in a relationship and they feel this need to merge. They can be codependent and they can lose themselves in love and then forget to take care of their own needs. Though marriage is their jam, so is divorce. They need to figure out what their priorities are and how much they owe to their partner. It's also common for Libra Saturns to hold themselves back from truly expressing their love in a relationship. What role do they play? They often fall in love early on in life, but they have to deal with losing that person. It can complicate things. They often experience anxiety and inner turmoil when they don't really understand what their part is in the relationship. Like, they don't understand what their responsibility is. What role do they play? But overall, this is a harmonious placement. During their Saturn return, the idea of partnership becomes very serious to them. And remember, if you don't know what a Saturn return is, you can always check out my video on Saturn returns and then come back and watch this one. There will be an emphasis on all the connections in your life, and new people will come into the picture. You'll still want to find structure within your relationship and your career. Past relationships may come back, or patterns from the past that you've exhibited in relationships may come back as well. This is a time where you would really learn from your love life. That perfect person who you may have been looking for may not be who you thought that they were. And you might be experiencing a major wake-up call. Your fairy tale romance might not be realistic. Not everyone will check all their boxes on your list. It's just not possible. And you'll have to decide during this time who you want to keep by your side. You may have to cull toxic people from your life. Who is no longer in alignment with your path? You'll have to learn to compromise with people. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Also, you may attract a lot of clingy or needy people who feed off your energy, or you may be needy or attached to others. So this is the time where you challenge those behaviors. Are you a people pleaser? What patterns do you tend to exhibit during your relationships? You may be too flamboyant about money or too attached to money. It's like one extreme, right? Figure out how to deal with those behaviors. Learn to be more responsible with your finances. Start budgeting or open a savings account. And you need to learn to do what's best for you. You need a plan. Figure out what you need to be happy and create a strategy for your Saturn return. Scorpio Saturn. Saturn's serious energy intensifies in Scorpio. So if you have a Saturn in Scorpio, you might feel intensely about situations, especially ones that have to do with whatever house your Saturn is in. That doesn't mean you don't know how to be discreet. Scorpio Saturns have a lot of wisdom to offer, and they understand things on a deeper level. Things have to mean something to them. Often, those with Saturn in Scorpio know what it's like to lose someone when they're really young. They tend to experience loss or grief at a really young age. They can be sarcastic or have a very dry sense of humor. They can dwell on things a lot, even if they don't show it outwardly. They naturally have this way of weeding through people that they meet, and they have a gut instinct about people and their intentions. They won't invest fully into a relationship that they don't fully see a future with. Their ability to understand others on a deeper level can also make them hold sway or allow them to hold sway over others. It gives them an upper hand. And they like to finish what they start. They're very determined, and sometimes it can make them stubborn. They need to feel like they have a purpose. They do tend to hide their Saturn intensity though and act really nice. But Saturn in Scorpio also means that they face a lot of psychological struggles, and they can lead to transgressions. Once they commit, they honor their commitments, and they don't stop until they have achieved everything. They would thrive in business. Saturn in Scorpios crave profound connection and hate shallow people. They hardly ever choose to be in a relationship that is surface level. Saturn in Scorpio also means that they may find themselves tempted by secrets and may partake in love affairs and scandals. They tend to be healthy as adults to make up for all their bad health as kids. The more they rise in the ranks, the more they will fall prey to gossip and rumors. And cancel culture can really tear them down, just when they thought everything was fine. Now, during a Saturn return in Scorpio, there will be a major life decision that will have to be made, and it's going to change everything. Remember to check out my video on Saturn returns if you want to know what that means and what a Saturn return is. But yeah, they might feel like they have to choose between their safety and their passion. They have to weigh whether whatever path they're on is working for them in the long run. They tend to let fear get in the way of this moment. That's something they must overcome. Scorpio thrives on transformation, and normally overcoming these challenges is a breeze for Scorpio, but Saturn is about stability and self-preservation. And so it's going to make it more difficult for Scorpio to do its thing and just navigate these changes and these ups and downs, right? It's not as easy for it to process. They may feel like they have to choose between taking a risk or staying the course. It might feel really tempting to tie the knot or buy a house or get a job, but that might be detrimental later on because Scorpio needs change. It needs transformation. That's what Scorpio is about. It's about transformation at its core. And so with Saturn weighing in on it, and especially during your Saturn return, that Saturn energy is amplified, and it's going to be really tempting to want to lock something down or make a big life-changing decision that's going to really cement you in place. But after Saturn passes, you'll realize, oh my God, like you might actually regret those decisions because it's not allowing Scorpio to do its thing. I don't know. I'm trying to explain it. I hope I'm doing an okay job. Please comment below if you're not understanding it, and I will try to rephrase it, okay? Basically, Scorpio needs change, and then with Saturn weighing on it and urging it to like lock something down and commit, it may feel like it was to avoid these feelings and escaping emotional turmoil. And so once Saturn passes, you will feel consequences for that into the next Saturn return, because Saturn is a karmic planet. And so things just like during your Saturn returns, basically the past is you're revisiting it, and all the decisions that you made during your previous Saturn return will kind of come back and be reevaluated at the next one. So keep that in mind when you're making these major decisions, Scorpio Saturn, because it could be changing everything for you, and you could be making decisions that you're not actually making decisions for you, it's more avoiding, but you don't realize it in the moment. Okay. Moving on. Just don't rush anything. This isn't an overnight event, and it will require a lot of patience and a lot of time. I feel like baby steps are a major key to this moment for you. Like, you have to take things little by little. Major life themes like money, power, sex will all undergo a huge shift during this time. They also might see others as a mirror to themselves. All their flaws and insecurities, they're going to see it mirrored back to them through their relationships and the people in their lives. They might experience trauma from past lives coming back, especially any enemies that they've made in their past life. I suspect that this is the time when they would meet that person again. They may have struggled to connect to their intuition before, but during their Saturn return, they will find themselves very in tune with it. They will also learn some very powerful lessons about intimacy, especially if they're afraid of it. They may realize that their intuition is telling them to leave their partner, or move, or quit their job, and they'll need to listen to it. They might have to learn to be vulnerable and stop projecting onto others. And shadow work might really benefit them during Saturn return. Actually, it might benefit them at any time, but this is a good time to start. Sagittarius Saturn. Saturn in Sagittarius will make a person less extreme with their thoughts and ideas. They're not just gonna believe whatever. Remember, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Jupiter is like the opposite of Saturn. It will make it very difficult for Sagittarius Saturn to just believe something. Where the information comes from matters. Like, it has to be legit. It has to come from a good source. And they might even need to see it to believe it. They spend a lot of time being a student of life before finding success. Saturn is a teacher that will keep Sagittarius in school, and they won't let them graduate until they are sure they have learned everything that they need to know. They might have to deal with hip pain or thigh pain. They don't care for preaching about morals and principles. They don't care about ideals. They deal with a lot of shit early on in life, and so they're ready to take on a lot as adults. They may feel really torn between their need for adventure and their need for stability and security. They might have old-fashioned beliefs and mindsets. As adults, they tend to be wise, and they have a really good head on their shoulders, and they have an understanding of the world around them. Others might look to them for help. They often have to deal with their character being brought into question, or their reputation, because they speak their mind before they think, and they can put their foot in their mouth. Their superpower is that they can challenge those around them. Teaching or journalism or blogging might be good for them when it comes to a career, because they're really good at finding the truth. They don't need to believe in the big picture in order to achieve something. In fact, they tend to be cynical and careless. They need to do something that has purpose for a living. That could be foreign affairs, law, journalism, teaching, writing, politics, social media, website development. They usually prefer comfort food or things that make them feel cozy instead of expanding their taste buds. Financial security matters to them, and they don't tend to splurge or take a lot of risks. They're careful. They don't travel as much usually, or have as much of a desire to explore the world, because they're kind of afraid to venture out of their home. During a Saturn return in Sagittarius, They might realize that their career or their love life is no longer in alignment with their views or beliefs. They'll have to choose between staying put and ignoring those beliefs, or seeking a life that is more in alignment with them. They will likely be presented with more opportunities to travel and step out of their comfort zone during a Saturn return. They may feel the need to question their religious beliefs and political stances that they were raised with during a Saturn return. And when it's in Sagittarius, they may have to take a leap when it comes to money and relationships. It's funny because my boyfriend his Saturn is in Sagittarius, and when I met him, he was just entering his Saturn return. He was 27. And so during that time, there were some major shifts that happened for him. He moved all the way across the country. He entered in this relationship with me, and he really expanded his comfort zone a lot. Whereas before, he'd kind of been staying in the same town. He did move a little bit, but my point is, there was this moment for him where he was there was this opportunity that just kind of came to him, and he was able to really make strides and move forward during that time. But he also had to question a lot of things and come to terms with where he was at and decide if this was something that he was willing to do and a risk he was willing to take. So it was a major moment, I think, for him, because Saturn in Sagittarius often means that they feel like they have this need to live somewhere else during their Saturn return. Or if they've spent their life traveling, then this is the time when they really want to kind of settle down and figure out where they belong. And actually traveling and exploring might really be necessary for a Saturn in Sagittarius during the Saturn return. They need to figure out who they are during this time, and a lot of that happens through travel and exploration and adventure. So it's a major shift for them. It's really exciting. Capricorn Saturn. Saturn rules Capricorn, and that makes it very powerful. Capricorn Saturns may come across as kind of selfish or uncaring, but they're also success-oriented, ambitious, determined, independent, and they give things their all. They don't give up on their goals. They deal with a lot of challenges throughout their childhood, and so by the time they've become adults, they kind of went through a lot. They may have had to fend for themselves. Capricorn rules the knees and the joints, and so they might experience a lot of joint aches, arthritis, having weak knees, and health issues. Saturn in Capricorn makes relationships challenging, and love may be difficult, but that doesn't mean they don't have a loyal, devoted friend group. In fact, they naturally attract positive influences in their life. They might act like the mom or the dad or the parent of the friend group because they're usually more mature than the people they hang out with. They want to do things on their own. Once they've signed on to something, it's very difficult to get them to walk away. They keep their promises as much as they can. They might have a dry sense of humor, or they can be sarcastic. Maybe they have a dark sense of humor. They aren't big on sharing, and it can isolate them. They don't really listen to advice, and they do things their own way, even if it's not the best way, even if they have to go in a roundabout to get to the place they want to be. It's their way. They don't tend to take the easy route. They tend to be strong-minded. And as kids, they may have been insecure or shy, but they learn from their mistakes and they gain wisdom and experience. So all of this is really going to impact their Saturn return. Saturn represents the father and masculine energy. And so Capricorn, being ruled by Saturn, will probably have something to do with, they may have daddy issues, or they may have issues when it comes to a father figure. And during a Saturn return, they might be confronted with that stuff. They need to learn to stop taking everything so seriously during a Saturn return. Remember to check out my video on Saturn returns if you want to know more about what they are and you're clueless about this before you watch the rest of this, because it will be very helpful. They can still take over the world and have a good time and chill out. They put a lot of pressure on themselves during this time. They may feel like they're going backwards if they didn't feel fulfilled as a kid. And the universe is going to help them through exposure therapy. They need to find a healthy middle between needing to be successful and making things happen, and also having fun and enjoying themselves. They may feel this need to prove themselves as adults, but it's actually important for those with Saturn and Capricorn to not need to grow up too fast. Like, slow down, take your time. You know, you may have had to be more mature as a kid, and so you may have missed out on a lot of your chances to be a kid and just have a good time. So I feel like for you as an adult, this is the time for you to actually just have fun and embrace life and have a good time. You know, you don't have to be serious. Like, you may have been forced into a position of responsibility in those cases. But for you, your Saturn return would be about learning to let go and not hold on to that kind of serious and maturity, you know, goof off. During your Saturn return, you might be tempted to do it all. You might want to start having a stable career, or open a new bank account, or have a family, you know, or get married, or buy a house, or buy a car. They don't mind order and structure, but mindfulness is the key here. Don't focus so much on success. Enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. During their Saturn return, it's so important for them to figure out what they want. Not just what others expect from them, but what they actually want deep down. So if your Saturn is in Aquarius or Pisces, make sure you check out the video I made about Saturn returns, because I talk in depth about Aquarius and Pisces with Saturn. You can navigate through it. I posted the timestamps in that video as well, so you can just jump right to whatever sign is yours. I currently am going through my Saturn return. I completely understand what it's about, and I am dealing with it. So I wanted to make sure I shared that separately. And you know, Saturn is in Aquarius right now as I make this video. So check those out. Remember that if some of this doesn't resonate with you, it's totally fine. Like, it's just one sign, right? But we have an entire natal chart, and it also matters where in your natal chart it's located, and if there are any aspects, you know, that could be influencing things. So keep that in mind. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment below with your Saturn. I would love to know in the comment section. And yeah, subscribe. Bye.